Before our guided discussion with panelists, we will hear a few words from Keely Stevenson. Keely is a family caregiver from the Bay Area who is active with Family Caregivers Alliance. Keely?
Hi, good morning. Thank you for inviting me to speak with you today. I woke up this morning feeling hopeful. I hope you all did too. Hopeful because I get to be with each of you as you address issues facing my family and so many families across the state. I woke up feeling hopeful, thinking about Ruth Bader Ginsburg and how much of America's way of being has transformed since her 1968 case that entitled both men and women to share and the same caregiving and Social Security rights. And so hopeful because she certainly showed that we're capable of really powerful things once we're moved to care deeply enough to give our attention, our time, and ourselves to it. So I was excited to be able to share some of my caregiving journey this morning. I live in San Francisco where I have a family, run a small business. I'm very close with my parents, and they still live in the low-income neighborhood of Sacramento where I grew up and where they made huge contributions as a public school teacher and a police officer before they retired. And a few years ago, my dad was diagnosed with lung cancer and my mom with COPD in the same year. And these diseases are likely caused by their smoking habit, even though they quit smoking 30 years ago. Not too long after came a heart attack, hip replacements, neuropathy that limited mobility, incontinence, diminishing vision, and then ambulance rides after falls, sometimes due to dehydration linked to UTIs. And each time something major happens, I drop everything in San Francisco and race back to Sacramento, often faced with responsibilities for really complex things that I had no training in, like administering IV medication. And I remember calling my sister and we're trying to, sort of figure out how to get the bubbles out. Don't kill dad. And other things like installing grab bars in the bathroom and setting up oxygen lines so that they don't get tangled in a walker. I find myself also there on the phone trying to clarify the cost of a certain medication or device and clarify the doctor's last instructions, and then all the while cooking dinner and doing laundry, and two things I loathe, and still trying to make space for that joy and that connection with these two people that I just love so, so much. And COVID's made this reality harsher for caregivers like me. It's brought to light the political, social, and economic realities that underlie and exacerbate this state of suffering. This summer, I lived with my parents full-time for 2 months to provide care. A few weeks ago, amid the plumes of the wildfire ash and 108-degree weather, I sat in a parking lot outside the emergency room where my mom, and I had just brought my mom, and in awe, looking at the ballooning tents outside for COVID patients, and looked around at the parking lot, seeing so many people like me. People likely missing work and biting their nails, awaiting news of their loved ones inside. And there's simply no roadmap. Regardless of having been a CEO and having advanced degrees from fancy schools, I'm no better equipped to deal with these type of situations. When it comes to caregiving, we're all in the same boat, and frankly, that boat is sinking. And it's sinking even faster if you're a person of color or from other disadvantaged backgrounds, or low, moderate income in America. And like many people, I once thought Medicare would cover what my parents would need as they got older. I never thought about how difficult it would be to find caregivers. I mean, we've really struggled, and it's so costly. I mean, professional caregivers being over $20 an hour, and we just haven't been able to afford that. So I hope never to have to risk my parents' financial security or my own as so many other people do, having to sell the house to pay for care in the future. And thus far, we've been able to make it work by getting all hands on deck. And I mean all hands, a patchwork of neighbors and distant relatives, and, you know, sort of all filling gaps and kind of caring lightly, is what we call it, to pitch in where they can. And faced with so little formal care infrastructure and support at home, we have relied heavily on them and their resources. And we've also been able to use creative technology tools to coordinate this loose network. And ironically, circling up around the care of my parents has brought about new friendships and new insights for my own health and well-being, and even inspired me to start an online caregiving platform that helps to mine for best practices and protocols for others that are in this situation just like me. But honestly, I'm scared. I'm scared of the risk of financial hardship for my family. I'm worried about someday having to sell what my parents worked all their lives to build and be able to afford care for them. And they deserve so much. And I'm worried about having to give up my own career to care for them full time, which would break their hearts, and because they know it would really just land me in the same circumstances when I'm their age. But I remain hopeful because I know there's so many latent and underutilized capacities to care. It's in our human nature. So our policies and infrastructure really should reflect that and mobilize that. And after all, I mean, love is at the root of this. Love is at the root of care. And so there's nothing more powerful than that. So I know that we can make aging awesome. I'm dedicating my life to it. And as a young person, in community college, I got to take a class with my mom. My sister, my mom, and I all went to community college together and took a class in death and dying, and it led us to do hospice volunteer work for many years. And so in the homes of so many people struggling to face the reality and support loved ones with terminal illnesses, I know that it is possible for unlocking this potential in so much love, even if things haven't changed that much in the past several decades. So John Gardner once said that history never looks like history when you're living through it. It always looks confusing and messy, and it always feels uncomfortable. So thank you for the opportunity to share my messy story with you as you make history and chart a new era for California. Thank you.
Thank you, Keely. Thank you so much for your words. Thank you for giving voice to what so many of us are experiencing and for also giving us hope and love.